The ground shook as another explosion hit nearby. Private Tae-ho Kim pressed his back against the rocky wall and tried to steady his breathing. His hands gripped his rifle so tight that his knuckles turned white. Around him, the remains of his squad took cover behind rocks and fallen trees. "They're coming up the pass," shouted Surgeon Han from somewhere to his left. Tae-ho risked a quick look. Down the mountain path, dark shapes moved with frightening speed. The Voidborn. Their tall, thin bodies looked almost human from a distance, but up close, no one could mistake them for people. Their skin was black as space, with tiny lights that looked like stars moving under their surface. Captain Ji-won Park slid down next to him, her face dirty with dust and blood. "Comms are back up," she said. "The evacuation ships need another 30 minutes. "The civilians won't make it," Tae-ho said. He pointed to the narrow mountain pass. "If the Voidborn get through here, they'll reach the evacuation zone in 10 minutes. Ji-won knew he was right. She looked at her squad. Only 7 soldiers left from the original 20. "We hold them here," she said, "no matter what." Tae-ho nodded, then remembered something. "The mining charges," he said suddenly. "The ones from the Eastern Ridge work. We could bring down the whole pass. That would trap us on this side," Ji-won said. "I know." Their eyes met. Ji-won understood what he was suggesting. "I'll do it," Tae-ho said. "I can set the charges while you and the others keep them busy." "That's a one-way trip, Kim. Better one than all of us. Better one than all those civilians." Before she could argue, the Voidborn attacked. Their weapons fired strange purple energy that melted rock on contact. 2 more soldiers fell in the first wave. "Go," Ji-won ordered, pushing Tae-ho toward the supply bags. "We'll cover you." Tae-ho grabbed the heavy pack of mining explosives and ran along the ridgeline. Behind him, the sound of gunfire mixed with the strange humming noise the Voidborn made when they died. The narrow part of the pass was about 200 meters ahead. Tae-ho placed the charges at key points along the rocky walls, working as fast as his shaking hands would allow. The Voidborn were getting closer. His squad was dying to buy him time. When the last charge was set, Tae-ho radioed Ji-won. "Captain, charges ready." Her voice came back broken by static. "Most of the squad is down. They broke through our line. I'm falling back with Surgeon Han. How long until you reach me?" A pause. "We won't make it, Kim. Too many of them between us." Tae-ho felt his stomach sink. The civilians. 20 more minutes until the last ship leaves. "Then I'm blowing the pass now. Get as far back as you can." Tae-ho wait. But there was no time to wait. The first Voidborn appeared around the bend, its star-flecked body moving with unnatural grace. Tae-ho fired, hitting it in the center mass. It fell, but 3 more appeared behind it. Tae-ho took cover behind a boulder and pressed the detonator. Nothing happened. "No, no, no," he whispered, pressing it again. The charges had to be triggered manually, a safety feature that now meant certain death. He made his choice in an instant. "Captain," he radioed. The remote detonator failed. "I'm going to trigger them directly. Tell my parents I did my job. Kim, don't." Tae-ho cut the connection. He fired at the approaching Voidborn, then ran to the main charge. They were close now, their strange humming filling his ears. He reached the detonator and closed his eyes for just a moment, thinking of home, of Earth, of the sky over Seoul he would never see again. Then he pressed the trigger. The mountain seemed to tear itself apart. Rocks larger than buildings crashed down into the pass. The last thing Tae-ho saw was a wall of stone falling toward him. And then darkness. 3 days later, Captain Ji-won Park stood before her commanding officer on the evacuation ship. "We've confirmed the pass was completely sealed by the explosion," the general said. "The civilian ships all made it out. Your squad bought them the time they needed." Ji-won nodded stiffly. "And recovery operations, sir. Private Kim's body. Denied. Elysium is lost. The Voidborn control the entire planet now. The general's face softened slightly. I'm sorry, Captain. We've listed him as killed in action. Private Tae-ho Kim died a hero. But as Jo-won walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that they had given up too easily. That somewhere under those rocks, something might have survived. She was right. Pain was the first thing Tae-ho felt. It came in waves, sharp and then dull, then sharp again. He tried to open his eyes, but only one would obey. The other was stuck shut. Don't move, said a soft voice. You'll make it worse. A woman's face came into view. She had short black hair and tired eyes. She wore a dirty lab coat with a patch that read Elysium Science Division. Am I dead? Tae-ho asked. His voice was rough, like sandpaper. Not yet, the woman said, though it was close. She held a cup of water to his lips. I'm Eun-ji Choi. I found you in the rocks 3 days ago. Tae-ho drank the water slowly. His mind started to clear. He was lying on a thin mat in what looked like a cave. A small light glowed from a battery pack nearby. He tried to sit up but fell back with a groan. Your right leg is broken, Eun-ji said. 3 ribs too. And your face. She paused. You were very lucky. The rocks made a pocket around you when the pass collapsed. Otherwise, you would have been crushed. Memories came flooding back. The Voidborn attack. Setting the charges. The explosion. My squad, he said. The evacuation. The civilian ships got away, Eun-ji told him. I heard it on my radio before it died. Your captain reported the mission was a success. Relief washed over Tae-ho. Then confusion. Why are you still here? Eun-ji's face grew sad. I stayed behind to collect samples. My research station was in these mountains. When the attack came, I hid in the cave system. I thought I could wait until help came. But no help is coming, Tae-ho guessed. She nodded. The Voidborn have taken the planet. We're behind enemy lines now. Tae-ho tried to reach for his neck, but his arm felt too heavy. My tags. Eun-ji reached into her pocket and pulled out his military dog tags. Your suit's emergency beacon was smashed in the collapse, and this, she held up his neural implant, a small chip now cracked in half, was damaged. I had to remove it before it caused brain damage. Tae-ho understood what this meant. Without his neural implant, he couldn't connect to Earth's military network. No one would be able to track him. As far as Earth was concerned, he was dead. How long until I can walk? He asked. With what I have. A month, maybe 2. We don't have that much time. The Voidborn will find this cave. Eun-ji shook her head. These caves go deep into the mountain. The minerals in the rocks block their sensors. That's why I chose this place for my research station. For the first time, Tae-ho looked around properly. Beyond the small area where he lay, he could see equipment pushed against the cave walls. Machines with blinking lights, sample containers, and what looked like a small lab setup. You're a scientist. Xenobiologist, she said. I study Elysium's native life forms. She picked up a small jar containing something that glowed blue. Some of them have interesting properties. This one, for example, speeds up healing when applied to wounds. Tae-ho looked at his bandaged arms, noticing the faint blue glow under the edges. Is that safe for humans? Safe enough, Eun-ji said with a small smile. You're still alive, aren't you? Over the next few weeks, Tae-ho healed faster than he thought possible. Eun-ji's knowledge of the local plants and creatures provided food, medicine, and even some comforts. She had been living in these caves for years, studying the unique ecosystem. As soon as he could walk, Tae-ho insisted on exploring the cave system. It was vast, with tunnels that led to hidden exits all over the mountainside. Perfect for watching the enemy without being seen. One evening, as they ate a meal of cave fish and root vegetables, Tae-ho looked at the small pistol Eun-ji kept by her side. Have you ever had to use that? She nodded. Once. A void-born scout came too close to one of the cave entrances. I had no choice. What did you do with the body? Fed it to the cave crawlers, she said matter-of-factly. Nothing goes to waste in this ecosystem. Tai-Ho studied her with new respect. This scientist was tougher than she looked. We can't just hide forever, he said. Sooner or later, we'll need supplies we can't find in these caves. What are you suggesting? Tai-Ho's good eye gleamed in the dim light. I'm a soldier. You know the land and its secrets. Maybe we can do more than just survive. Like what? Yunji asked, though the look in her eyes said she already knew the answer. Like make the Voidborn regret ever coming to this planet. Yunji was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached for her bag and pulled out a rough map of the area. Their closest outpost is here, she said, pointing to a mark on the map. They store their supplies in the old mining facility. Security is minimal. They don't expect resistance. Tai-Ho smiled for the first time since waking up in the cave. Then let's give them something they don't expect. 6 months had passed since the mountain collapse. The Voidborn commander, Sentinel Prime, stared at the report on his screen with growing anger. Another supply transport missing. He hissed at his second-in-command. That makes 5 this month. Yes, Sentinel. This one disappeared in the Eastern Valley, near the old human mining site. And the patrol sent to investigate. No contact for 3 days. We must assume they are lost as well. Sentinel Prime's star-flecked skin rippled with frustration. This planet should have been simple to control. The human forces had retreated. Their scans showed no significant human presence remained. Yet something was disrupting their operations. The workers speak of a ghost, his second-in-command said quietly. A human spirit that haunts the mountains. Superstition. Sentinel Prime snapped. Find me answers, not stories. But the stories continued to spread among the Voidborn ranks. High in the mountain cave, Tai-Ho cleaned his makeshift weapon. It was part human rifle, part Voidborn technology. Ugly but effective. Beside him lay the armor of a Voidborn soldier, modified to fit his human frame. The last raid went well, Yunji said as she entered the cave. Her arms were full of strange blue plants. But the Voidborn have doubled the guards at the western outpost. Tai-Ho nodded. They're learning. Slowly. Over the months, he had become a different man. His face was scared from the explosion, with one eye now milky white. His body was harder, leaner. He moved with silent precision, a skill learned from hunting the cave animals and stalking Voidborn patrols. I've been working on something new, Yunji said. She laid out the blue plants and opened a small container of dark liquid. The glow from these plants confuses their sensors. And this, she pointed to the liquid, is Voidborn blood. I think I can use it to mask your heat signature. Tai-Ho looked impressed. That would let me get much closer to their main base. Exactly, Yunji smiled. She had changed too. The scared scientist was now a determined survivor. Her knowledge of Elysium's biology had become their greatest weapon. Later that night, Tai-Ho stood at the mouth of a small cave opening, looking down at the Voidborn outpost in the valley. The alien structures glowed with an eerie purple light. Guards moved in precise patterns around the perimeter. Remember, their sensors can't see through the liquid for more than an hour. Yunji's voice came through the small radio in his ear. Get in and out fast. Always do, he replied. Tai-Ho pulled the modified Voidborn helmet over his head. The strange substance Yunji had created covered his exposed skin. He moved down the mountainside like a shadow, using the rocks and trees for cover. The Voidborn never saw him coming. One moment, 2 guards stood watching the perimeter. The next, they lay unconscious, dragged into the bushes. Tai-Ho slipped into the outpost through a maintenance hatch Yunji had identified from earlier observations. Inside, he moved quickly through the alien corridors. The layout was becoming familiar after so many raids. He reached the supply room and began filling his bag with medical materials and power cells. Then he heard it, voices approaching, but not the humming tones of the Voidborn. These were human voices. Taiho pressed himself against the wall as two humans in work uniforms walked past the door. They wore collar devices that blinked with purple light, control collars. The Voidborn were using human prisoners as workers. This changed everything. Taiho followed them at a distance, counting at least 20 humans working under guard. As he watched, one collapsed from exhaustion. A Voidborn guard raised its weapon. Taiho acted without thinking. His modified rifle fired, dropping the guard before it could hurt the human. Alarms blared immediately. Taiho, what's happening? Yunji's worried voice came through the radio. Change of plans, he replied. There are human prisoners here. Chaos erupted as Taiho moved through the facility, freeing confused prisoners and fighting off guards. By the time he reached the exit, he had 12 terrified humans following him. This way, he ordered, leading them toward the mountain paths. Voidborn energy weapons fired around them. One prisoner fell. Taiho turned and provided covering fire. The ghost, one of the Voidborn soldiers, cried out. The mountain ghost is real. Taiho smiled behind his mask. Let them think he was a ghost. Fear was a weapon too. By dawn, he had led the freed prisoners to the safety of the cave network. Yunji was shocked but quickly began caring for the exhausted humans. What do we do with them? She asked Taiho privately. He looked at the group, thin, scared, but with hope in their eyes for the first time in months. We train them, he said simply. The resistance just got bigger. The caves were no longer quiet. What had once been Yunji's lonely research station now buzzed with activity. 27 humans lived in the expanded cave system. Each had a job, a purpose. Taiho walked through the main cavern, nodding to people as they worked. Some cleaned weapons taken from Voidborn soldiers. Others sorted through stolen supplies. In one corner, Yunji taught two former factory workers how to make medicine from cave plants. Taiho called a voice. Min Su, a former mining engineer, waved him over to a rough table where maps were spread out. We found another group of survivors. Taiho studied the marked location. How many? 7, hiding in the old forest station in the southern valley. Voidborn presence. Heavy. They've set up a new outpost nearby. Taiho considered this information. In the 4 months since rescuing the first group of prisoners, their resistance had grown. Each new person brought skills and knowledge. But more people meant needing more supplies, and that meant more dangerous raids. We'll go tonight, Taiho decided. Small team. 3 people. Min Su nodded. I'll tell Da-hyun and Suk to get ready. As Min Su left, Yunji approached. Another rescue mission. Yes, we need their knowledge of the southern valley. Yunji looked worried. The Voidborn have changed their patrol patterns. They're adapting to our tactics. Then we'll adapt too, Taiho said simply. Later that night, Taiho led his small team through the forest. The 3 moved like shadows, using the strange blue paste Yunji had perfected to mask their heat signatures from Voidborn sensors. They wore pieces of modified Voidborn armor over Earth clothing, a strange mix that had become the unofficial uniform of their resistance. As they approached the forest station, Taiho raised his hand, signaling a stop. Something wasn't right. The station was too quiet. It's a trap, he whispered. But before they could retreat, lights flashed on all around them. Voidborn soldiers emerged from hiding places, weapons aimed. Run, Taiho ordered. He fired his weapon, creating a distraction as his team scattered. Energy bolts flew past him as he ran, dodging between trees. A blast hit a tree beside his head, showering him with burning splinters. He dropped and rolled, coming up behind a fallen log. From there, he fired back, dropping 2 Voidborn soldiers. More soldiers approached, too many. Taiho reached into his pocket and pulled out one of Yunji's special devices, a mix of Earth technology and local biology. He activated it, and threw it into the center of the approaching soldiers. The device burst open, releasing a cloud of glowing spores. The Voidborn sensors went wild, unable to differentiate between targets. They fired blindly, hitting each other in the confusion. Tai-Ho used the chaos to escape into the forest. Hours later, he met up with his team at the backup location. All three had made it out. "What about the survivors at the station?" Suk asked. "There were none," Tai-Ho said grimly. "It was false information. A setup." Back at the cave, Yeonji treated a burn on Tai-Ho's arm. "They're getting smarter," she said quietly. "Yes, but so are we." The next morning, a small ship landed in a hidden valley 10 miles from the resistance base. It wasn't a military vessel or a Voidborn craft. It was a smuggler ship, one of the few that sometimes brave the Voidborn blockade to trade with the occupied planet. The ship's captain, a weathered woman named Hana, met with 3 hooded figures at the edge of the forest. "You have the medicine?" one of the resistance members asked. Hana nodded toward her ship. "And the communication parts you wanted. Not easy to get past the blockade." "We have payment," the resistance fighter said, holding out a container of rare minerals. As they made the exchange, Hana looked around nervously. "The stories about your leader, are they true?" "What stories?" "They say he survived a mountain collapse, that he can become invisible to Voidborn sensors, that he's taken down whole outposts alone." The resistance fighters exchanged glances. "Some stories grow in the telling," one said carefully. Hana leaned closer. "People are talking about the ghost of Elysium in every port from here to Earth. Your resistance gives people hope." After the smuggler left, Tai-Ho emerged from the trees where he had been watching. What did she mean? Stories reaching Earth. Word spreads. Min-Su said. "The smugglers talk. The Voidborn we've captured and released talk. People need heroes." Tai-Ho frowned. He didn't feel like a hero. He was just a soldier doing his job. The job he should have died doing months ago. "I don't need to be a legend," he said. "I need weapons, information, and fighters. Sometimes a legend brings those things," Yeonji said softly, joining them. "People believe in the mountain ghost of Elysium. That belief makes them brave enough to fight." Yeonji bent over her workbench, eyes fixed on the strange sample under her microscope. The small piece of Voidborn technology pulsed with an inner light. Around her, the cave lab had grown from a simple setup to an impressive operation with equipment taken from Voidborn outposts. "Found anything?" Tai-Ho asked as he entered the lab. A year had passed since the mountain explosion, and his face now bore a full beard that partly covered his scars. The white eye that couldn't see anymore gave him an unsettling appearance that had only added to his legend. "Yes," Yeonji said, not looking up. "And it's not good." She stepped back and motioned for him to look through the microscope. "This is from the mining equipment we captured last week." Tai-Ho looked at the sample. Tiny creatures moved inside the metal, almost like they were eating it. "What am I seeing?" "Living technology," Yeonji explained. "The Voidborn aren't just mining our planet, they're farming it." She pulled up a map of Elysium on her tablet. Red dots covered the surface, showing Voidborn bases. "Notice the pattern. Every major base is built over natural cave systems or mineral deposits. At first, I thought they were just using our old mining sites, but now I understand." She picked up a small rock with strange blue veins running through it. "This mineral is everywhere on Elysium. We thought it was just pretty. The first settlers used it for decoration, but the Voidborn call it Void Essence. It's the key to their faster-than-light travel." Tai-Ho's eye widened. "That's why they invaded. For rocks." "Not exactly. Human technology can't extract the energy from the mineral. But these," she pointed to the microscope, "these little creatures can. They're bioengineered by the Voidborn specifically to harvest the energy." Tai-Ho leaned against the table, taking in this new information. "So Elysium is more valuable than we thought." "Much more. Earth scientists never detected the mineral's properties because we lacked the biological tools to access its energy. A plan began to form in Tahoe's mind. If the mineral is that important to them, we could cripple their operations. Yunji finished his thought. But we need more information. Their main processing facility is heavily guarded. Tahoe nodded slowly. Then that's our next target. 3 days later, Tahoe and 4 resistance fighters crouched on a ridge overlooking the largest voidborn facility on the planet. Unlike their usual raid targets, this one was massive, with high walls and constant patrols. "This is suicide," whispered Sun Mai, one of the newer resistance members. "Only if we try to fight our way in," Tahoe replied. He pointed to a small entrance where large containers were being carried inside by worker drones. "We're going in there." Min Su unfolded a small device Yunji had created. "This will record their data once we reach a terminal. We just need 5 minutes connected to their system." The 5 humans moved silently down the hillside as night fell. They wore suits covered in the paste that blocked voidborn sensors, making them nearly invisible to the alien technology. At the loading area, they waited until a large shipment arrived. As the container was scanned, they slipped past the guards and into the facility. Inside, the true purpose of the voidborn presence became clear. Massive tanks filled with glowing blue liquid lined the walls. Small creatures like the ones Yunji had shown Tahoe swam in the tanks, processing the mineral. "Over there," Tahoe whispered, pointing to a control station. "Get the data." Min Su and Sun Mi moved to the terminal while Tahoe and the others kept watch. The minutes felt like hours as Min Su worked to copy the voidborn data. "Almost done," Min Su whispered. Suddenly, an alarm blared. They had been discovered. "Time to go," Tahoe ordered. He pulled out one of Yunji's special devices, what the resistance called ghost bombs, and threw it toward the approaching guards. The device burst, releasing a cloud that confused voidborn sensors. In the chaos, the humans ran for the exit. Energy bolts flew around them. One hit a tank, causing blue liquid to spill across the floor. The liquid began to eat through the metal floor like acid. "The mineral," Sun Mi shouted. "It's unstable when processed." Tahoe saw an opportunity. He fired his weapon at another tank, and then another. Blue liquid poured everywhere, causing confusion and destruction. The team reached the exit and flowed into the night. Behind them, parts of the facility began to collapse as the processed mineral ate through support structures. Hours later, safe in the cave, Min Su connected the stolen data to their system. "It's all here," he said with excitement. "Processing methods, weaknesses in their biology, their communication codes, everything." "It won't work," Lieutenant Sang said, looking at the broken communications array from the crashed shuttle. "Too many parts are damaged." Jai-1 frowned. They had spent 3 days trying to repair their equipment. Without it, they had no way to contact Earth. "We have to try. Earth needs to know what's happening here." Tahoe watched from the entrance of the small cave where they worked. In the days since the Earth team's arrival, he had kept his distance from Jai-1. Old memories, old pain. "Your Earth technology isn't strong enough to break through the voidborn signal jammers," he said. "We've tried for 2 years." Yunji stepped forward. "But maybe if we combined it with what we've learned about voidborn technology." A spark of hope lit Jai-1's eyes. "A hybrid system." "Exactly." Yunji turned to Min Su. "Bring the communication parts we took from the northern outpost." For the next week, the cave became a workshop. Earth engineers worked alongside resistance fighters, combining 2 technologies never meant to work together. Ji-1 and Tahoe found themselves working side by side, the awkwardness between them slowly giving way to professional respect. "Why did you keep fighting?" Jai-1 asked Tahoe one night as they tested signal strength. "Most people would have just tried to survive." Tahoe was quiet for a long moment. "At first, I thought I was living on borrowed time. The explosion should have killed me. Every day after felt like a gift I hadn't earned." He adjusted a connection on the device they were building. Then we found more survivors. They looked at me like I could save them. So I had to try. Jai-1 watched him work, seeing both the soldier she had known and the leader he had become. You did more than try. You built something remarkable here. We all did, Tahoe corrected her. For the first time, he almost smiled. On the 10th day, they were ready to test the hybrid communication system. The resistance gathered in the main cave as Yunji made final adjustments. This will use the Voidborn's own signal patterns against them, she explained. It should let us punch through their jamming for about 3 minutes. That's not much time, Jai-1 said. It's all we'll get before they track the signal, Tahoe replied. Make it count. Jai-1 nodded. I'll send the message myself. As Yunji activated the device, a high-pitched whine filled the cave. Lights flickered as power was diverted to the communication system. Channel open, Yunji announced. You have 3 minutes, starting now. Jai-1 spoke clearly into the microphone. This is Major Jai-1 Park, ID code Alpha 79 Delta. My recon team is alive on Elysium. We've made contact with resistance fighters. I repeat, there is an active human resistance on Elysium. She quickly explained about the vital mineral the Voidborn were harvesting and transmitted the data they had stolen from the processing facility. This information shows Voidborn weaknesses and the strategic importance of Elysium. They cannot function without this mineral. Request immediate extraction and military support. The resistance leader is. Jai-1 looked at Tahoe, who shook his head slightly. The resistance is led by brave civilians and soldiers who survived the invasion. They need our help. Over. For a long moment, there was only static. Then a voice crackled through. Major Park, this is General Lee. Message received. Data package downloading. Stand by for. The connection died as Yunji shut down the system. Voidborn trackers were closing in, she explained. Any longer, and they would have found us. Did they get the message? Asked one of the resistance fighters. Jai-1 nodded. They got it. Now we wait. They didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, a resistance scout reported increased Voidborn activity in orbit. They're mobilizing their fleet, Tahoe said as they studied the report. Something has them worried. Then came the news they had been hoping for. Voidborn communications, which the resistance monitored, were filled with panic. A large Earth fleet had entered the system, catching them by surprise. That night, the sky above Elysium lit up with explosions as ships battled in orbit. Earth had come. The next morning, Min-Su rushed into the command cave. Earth ships are breaking through. They're sending landing craft to the southern continent. Cheers erupted throughout the cave. After 2 years of fighting alone, help had finally arrived. Jai-1 found Tahoe standing apart from the celebration, looking at a map of the planet. It's time to go home, she said. Tahoe shook his head. The battle isn't over. The Voidborn still control most of the surface. Earth forces don't know the terrain like we do. What are you saying? I'm saying some of us need to stay. Guide your troops. Leave the ground resistance. His good eye met hers. This isn't just about escape anymore. It's about taking back Elysium. Earth ships filled the skies above Elysium. For 2 weeks, they had battled the Voidborn fleet, slowly gaining the upper hand. On the ground, Earth soldiers pushed forward, guided by resistance fighters who knew every hill and valley. In the main resistance cave, now a joint command center, Tahoe stood before a group of Earth officers and resistance leaders. A holographic map showed the planet's surface, with red areas marking Voidborn control. They're retreating to their main mining facility. Tahoe explained, pointing to a massive structure built into a mountain. This is their most important site. It processes the mineral they need for their ships. General Chen, the Earth commander, studied the map. Heavily defended. Very, Jai-1 confirmed. Our scouts report they've moved most of their remaining forces there. Why not just bomb it from orbit? Asked an Earth captain. Yunji stepped forward. The facility is built deep into the mountain. Orbital strikes wouldn't reach the processing centers, and if we destroy it completely, we lose access to the mineral ourselves. The general nodded. So we need a ground assault. A small team, Taiho suggested. Moving fast, using our knowledge of the tunnels, we can plant explosives at key points to disable the facility without destroying it completely. A suicide mission, General Chen said quietly. A necessary one, Taiho replied. The plan took shape quickly. Earth forces would launch a major attack on the facility's main entrance as a distraction. Meanwhile, Taiho would leave a small team through hidden cave passages that ran beneath the facility. The night before the mission, Jai-1 found Taiho standing alone at the mouth of the cave, looking at the stars. "You don't have to lead this mission," she said. "Earth has special forces trained for this, who don't know the caves like I do." He turned to face her. "Besides, I started this fight. I should be there to finish it." "You've done enough, Taiho. More than enough." He shook his head. "When that mountain fell on me 2 years ago, I thought I was dead. Every day since has been borrowed time. If tomorrow is when I pay it back, so be it." Jai-1 was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I'm coming with you." "You have orders to coordinate from base," Taiho reminded her. "I filed for a field reassignment." Her face was determined. "I left you behind once. I won't do it again." Dawn broke over Elysium as Earth forces began their assault on the Voidborn facility. The sound of battle echoed through the mountains as Taiho led his team to a small cave entrance hidden behind a waterfall. 8 people made up the strike team. Taiho, Jai-1, Yun-Ji, Min-Su, and 4 Earth Special Forces soldiers. Each carried explosives and weapons that combined Earth and Voidborn technology. "Remember," Yun-Ji told them as they prepared to enter, "I've modified these charges to target their biotech specifically. The mineral processing creatures will be disrupted, but the facility structure should remain mostly intact." Taiho nodded. "Once we plant the charges, we have 15 minutes to get out." The tunnels were dark and narrow. They moved silently, using night vision here. Above them, they could hear the sounds of the battle raging at the main entrance. "The distraction is working," Jai-1 whispered. "Most of their forces are engaged topside." They reached a junction where the natural caves met the constructed facility. Taiho held up his hand, stopping the team. Ahead, 2 Voidborn guards stood at a service entrance. Silently, Taiho and one of the Earth soldiers moved forward. In seconds, both guards were down. "We're in," Taiho said into his comm unit. "Moving to target points now." They split into 4 teams of 2, each heading to different sections of the facility. Taiho and Jai-1 took the central processing chamber, the most dangerous target and the most heavily guarded. Moving through maintenance corridors, they avoided most of the Voidborn troops. But as they approached the central chamber, an alarm sounded. "We've been spotted," Jai-1 said, checking her scanner. "One of the teams has engaged hostiles." "Then we move faster," Taiho replied. They ran now, no longer concerned with stealth. When 3 Voidborn soldiers appeared ahead, Taiho and Jai-1 fired together, dropping them quickly. They reached the massive central chamber. Inside, enormous vats of glowing blue liquid bubbled as the bioengineered creatures processed the precious mineral. Voidborn technicians worked at control stations. "Cover me," Taiho said, pulling out the explosive charges. "I need to place these on the main tanks." Jai-1 took position at the doorway, firing at any Voidborn that tried to enter. Taiho moved from tank to tank, placing charges at key points. 5 years had passed since the Battle of Elysium, where once there had been ruins and Voidborn structures, a thriving human colony now stood. New buildings gleamed in the sunlight. Fields of crops stretched across valleys that had once been battlegrounds. At the edge of the rebuilt city, a simple stone monument stood on a hill overlooking the mountain pass where it all began. The monument bore no name, just a single line: "For those who fought when hope seemed lost." Every year on Liberation Day, people placed blue flowers at its base. The same glowing flowers Unjai had once used to treat a wounded soldier's injuries. Today, a group of children gathered around the monument as their teacher told them the story they all knew by heart, but never tired of hearing. And so, the mountain ghost led Earth forces to victory, the teacher said. The Voidborn main facility was disabled, breaking their connection to their fleet. Without the special mineral from Elysium, their ships couldn't escape when Earth forces attacked. A small girl raised her hand. But what happened to the ghost? Did he die in the explosion? The teacher smiled. Some say he did. Official records show that Private Tae-ho Kim died during the initial invasion, years before the liberation. There is no mention of a resistance fighter who led his people for 2 years. But that's not true. A boy protested. My dad was in the resistance. He says the ghost was real. Many people say that. The teacher agreed. But sometimes legends are more powerful than official records. As the children debated, a tall woman with short gray hair watched from a distance. General Ji-won Park had returned to Elysium for the anniversary celebrations. She wore a formal Earth military uniform with many medals, though none were for the 2 years she had spent fighting alongside the resistance. She walked away from the monument, following a path to a small research station at the edge of the forest. Inside, a woman with lines around her eyes looked up from a microscope. J1, Yunji smiled. Right on time. Would I miss our annual meeting? J1 replied, embracing her old friend. Yunji led her through the laboratory to a back office. On the wall hung a faded resistance flag next to an old piece of Voidborn armor, modified in the distinctive style of the mountain ghost. How is the academy? Yunji asked. Full of bright young officers who think they know everything, Jaiwon said with a small smile. I still teach the unauthorized class on guerrilla warfare. The ghost's tactics are required reading, even if officially he never existed. Yunji nodded. And Earth still denies the existence of the resistance. They acknowledge that civilian survivors assisted military forces. Nothing more. Jaewon sighed. Politics. They can't admit they abandoned a colony for 2 years. And yet, here we are. Yunji gestured out the window to the thriving colony. Jaewon followed her gaze. Here we are. After a moment of silence, Yunji picked up a small case from her desk. I have something to show you. They walked together to her research garden, where strange plants and flowers grew in carefully tended plots. At the far end stood a single tree unlike any on Earth, tall with silvery bark and leaves that seemed to glow from within. I'd finally classified it. Yunji said proudly, a completely new species that evolved to absorb the mineral that brought the Voidborn here. It survived everything. Their mining, the battles, the final explosion. She opened the case, revealing an official scientific document. I've named it officially. Jaewon read the scientific name and smiled. The Latin classification translated roughly to Taeho's enduring light. Perfect, she said softly. After leaving Yunji, Jaewon walked to a small house on the outskirts of the colony. It stood apart from others, surrounded by a garden of native Elysium plants. As she approached, a man stepped out onto the porch. His face was heavily scared on one side, and he walked with a slight limp. A young boy ran around him, playing with a handmade toy ship. Uncle Hyun. The boy called when he saw Jaewon. The general is here. The man, who officially had never been Private Tae-ho Kim, but was now known as Hyun to the small community that protected his privacy, nodded to Jaewon. Right on time, he said. Would I miss our annual meeting? She replied, echoing her words to Yunji. That night, 3 old friends sat around a table, sharing a meal and memories. No medals were displayed. No official recognition hung on the walls. Just 3 people who knew the truth. Outside, children played, telling stories of the mountain ghost who had saved Elysium. They didn't know that he lived among them, tending his garden and helping build their community. They didn't need to know. History had forgotten the soldier, but the people had made him a legend.